I had fought the worst of all wars and witnessed the redemption of evil. I have seen balance restored to the Force. But order can turn to chaos, as it did when I was born. Now, with my loved ones and my loyal allies, I face a new challenge unlike any before. And I'm not sure this time we can win.
Star Wars Vector Prime by R.A. Salvatore, the first novel of the new Jedi Order.
This is where the fun begins.
Good morning, everyone. This is OG Star Wars here with you, Thursday morning CAF chat. So wherever you are in the world and you're participating, please grab your favorite beverage. I'm grabbing coffee because it is morning here. So good morning to you guys as well. And welcome to Thursday morning's favorite Star Wars chat. And I'm so happy to be here with you guys. And I'm seeing people are popping on right now. So as you join us, please hit the like button and share that we are live on all your social media platforms. And if you're catching the replay, please like and share as well. And let me know you are here by leaving a comment or responding to some of the topics that we are discussing here today. So good morning. And I am staying off screen today. I just didn't feel like dolling up for you guys just because I just am feeling very lazy and kind of tired. Been going beyond, well, I want to say going beyond, but I've been keeping up on my fitness schedule. And so my body I woke up tired and I slept in a little bit longer than I wanted to because it felt warm to stay in the sheets in the bed. So I'm here with you. And that's what matters. So how are you guys doing this morning? I see people are popping in and we have Fracture Filter here. Good morning, all. Grab your CAF, put on your feet, or put up your feet, not put on your feet. Jeez, I just need to grab my glasses. Smash that like button and share the stream out. Thank you so much. Thank you. And we have Iron Inquisitor here, ran out of coffee before the start. Laugh out loud. Oh my God, that is so sad. Well, grab your favorite beverage other than coffee. Whether it's OJ or orange juice or a favorite hot tea with honey, whatever. Or maybe some people, their first beverage sometimes is an eye opener. And if you don't know what that means, people who like to drink and they go to bed from drinking or whatever, they will go and wake up and have an eye opener, another drink. So, I mean, I'm not saying, you guys are alcoholics or anything, but that's just what, what I've observed growing up and stuff is get yourself an eye opener. An eye opener. That's hilarious. So Brandon, the awesome, is here. Greetings, everyone. I am back. Guess who's back? Shady's back, eh? No. And let's see here. Jackson is here as well. Rey gets her powers from Abaloth. Change my mind. So yes, speaking of Abaloth, I did a poll because Cringe Factor is going to consist of talking about Rey and Abaloth. So that's Cringe Factor today. So I'll tell you the topics before anything else. But first, that poll. Who will win? Will it be Rey or will it be Abaloth? So you decide, because Rey is this Mary Sue that was created into Disney lore. If you haven't really, if you were under a rock for the last 8+ years, and you don't know who Rey is, or basically her capabilities at least. She's a Mary Sue that was created in the Disney trilogy to supersede everything that the Skywalkers have done. So there you go. And she can win in everything. She fought her first dark side Sith type person, who basically in the Disney lore is the son to Leia and Han. Yeah. So you choose. You choose. Who do you think will win? Based upon Abaloth's history and what we know of her in Fate of the Jedi. And mind you, Luke needed Sith help to defeat her. And she's still left in Force essence. She Force wounded Luke, so she left a wound in Luke. And so, people who read that were wondering, I wonder what's going to happen to Luke, how he's going to die. And then the buyout happens. So, yeah. Then there's Rey. Sorry to give you an example of Rey. So based upon both of their history, how they were written in the lore, who do you think will win? Like I said, Luke had to get help. And Rey can defeat the Sith on her own without training. So you choose. You choose. All right. So the topics today are going to be, and I'm going to go through the chat and still say hello to everybody. So I haven't, I'm not going to just skip up on you guys. We are going to discuss Revan and KOTOR lore. So Revan has been rumored, and I'll pull that article up here pretty soon, to possibly be in that sizzle reel that we know called Acolyte, right? So that one thing that's still kind of are in production, or whatever's going on in Disney Lucasfilm, the current moment, we don't know. But it's rumored by fans because Keanu Reeves is making a cameo appearance in Acolyte. This is a reel called Acolyte, or whatever you want to say. That's the most expensive sizzle reel I've ever seen, if that's a thing. Yeah. And then we're going to talk about Rey versus Screen Rants. I always like to use CBR Screen Rant for my Cringe Factor articles to laugh at and then think about and talk with you guys about how fans today will believe what Screen Rant says about this, but then also how they do share some truth in some things, like an author or a writer, I guess you could say. And I'm rolling my eyes as I say that. You guys can't see that. But they will, break down a comic or a story that's in the Disney lore, and they will share some truth on the direction that they're going with the lore and how people will perceive the movies. Like right now, the bastardization that I've been telling you guys about, that they've been doing against Yoda, which should alarm you just as much as it did with Luke. But I don't know why it's not getting enough headway and enough tension, I guess you could say, to alarm fans who grew up with these characters. Yoda is a pivotal character that influenced Luke, but also was a huge influence in the prequel trilogy. And to see these comics, and from the High Republic all the way into comics that are near the PT era in the Disney lore, to see how they're writing him to be this massive give up failure to justify why Luke gave up, should alarm you on how the creators under Disney, Lucasfilm, Disney, the keyword Disney, it's not just Lucasfilm, they're not our entity. Everything's approved by Disney. They're the ones, Disney's the one that decided, like, we are not going to use the EU anymore. That's going to be irrelevant for us. Well, they are destroying the perception of fans regarding Yoda. So by the time you get to the PT and these fans, these new fans that are reading all these comics and stuff like that, are really going to have a bad perception on Yoda and then the Jedi Order, the PT itself. And then when you get into the OT, similar. So, so keep an eye out for that. There was another one, I think I discussed it, at least on Twitter, but there's another one out, and it's regarding, I think we talked about it a little bit on CAF chat. I have to go back and look. It's been a crazy week this week, but anyways, where Yoda basically has the same perception as Luke did about going into exile. So the exile that was originally created by George Lucas, and I'm going on a little rant right now, and then we'll go on to the lore with Revan and stuff. I'm sorry, you guys, and I'll say hello to you guys in the chat. Yoda basically, like what we've seen in the original lore, Yoda basically is like, we will hide until the time is right. And of course, they're going to still, like, it's going to be common for a being to reflect back on what had happened and stuff. But when him and Obi-Wan went into hiding or exile or whatever you want to call it, they went in with hope of the future. They went in with a purpose, determined, knowing that they're not truly defeated, the Jedi Order's not truly gone, because there's two, masters on the council that remain, and their focus is, training Luke and possibly Leia. And then Luke, if you read Revenge of the Sith novel, Luke is the one that Yoda said that will create a new order. Like he realized that the Jedi needed to evolve. So Luke is that hope. Now the Disney lore, that doesn't exist anymore. So with that being said, we're going to get into Revan here, and I'm going to go ahead and finish saying hello to everybody in the chat first. So, and please vote on that poll here, based upon what you know about these two characters and their strengths and stuff, everything that you know about them, if in the lore that they're written in, because these are two separate lore. One's original, one is a name only. And so votes. So Ray got 10% and Abaloth got 90%. You could share why you chose either or. I mean, we could build that conversation here soon. We'll get into that cringe factor as well. All right, so Soul Assassin here. What up, Vato? How you doing? I mean, Ray would win. She is all the Jedi. And Caffeinated Wolf is here. Hail. He is one of the number one most, the biggest fan I've ever seen for Revan. And not a lot of knowledge and stuff. I had to go back and review because I read the books, but I never played the game. So my approach to this is not game wise. So I'm, and a lot of people was brought into KOTOR or Knights of the Old Republic or Old Republic lore because of the games. So thank you for hopping in, and and I know you're going to contribute a lot to this talk, and I look forward to that. So all my Revan fans, gather on up. We're going to get going here pretty soon. I do see I have a super chat. Okay. Melissa Lord, what's up? Channel member here. Hey girl, OG Star Wars. And how are you doing? Thank you for your support. And Brandon says, wait, what was the question? The question is a poll. Who would win? Abaloth from if you're unsure who Abaloth is, she is this so they kind of like retconned a bit of the Mortis arc, changed it up a little bit in the Fate of the Jedi, so in the last series before the buyout. And she is what you would call the chaos of the ones. The ones are not celestial, really. They're just an example of the embodiment of the Force and what the light, the dark, I guess you could say balance or peace. I would say more or less peace, not balance, and then chaos. So the Father would be what you say balance or peace, because they were opposite. So light and dark, chaos and peace. So basically they kind of retconned a little bit of what the ones meant in, not kind of, but they did what the ones meant. And she is an entity that became one of the ones later. And because of her greed and because of her wanting to belong and stuff like that, and what she went through to put herself through that, she became the chaos. And they eventually ended up imprisoning her in the mall. Not a mall, a maw, MAW. Um, and during all the Jason's reign as Darth Cadus, or Cadus, he unknowingly helped her escape from her imprisonment. And then since then, she, basically started raising hell. But anyways, I mean, if you don't know, I'm saying this in a very small nutshell. There's a lot that had happened during that Fate of the Jedi. Some people like that series, some people don't, because of the Clone Wars information lore that was added to it. Like I said, some of it is like huge retcons as well. Not huge, but there were still retcons. And so I kind of favored that, switching directions and what the ones meant, especially for how they try to say Anakin, the chosen one, was meant to be the father. No. But anyways, so vote for who you think. If you're unsure, just leave it and no worries. I need more coffee. I understand that. Get coffee. My grandma used to do this. She would drink some coffee in the afternoon and she would put Kahlua in it. I did have a few sips. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that tasted good. But yeah, so she would basically spice up a little more. Smash that like button, share the stream out, and yes, do that. And I drank some blue milk before I came in. As long as it wasn't green milk, I'd be questioning that. All right, drink water. Got a massive headache that started going down. Boy, you too. I kind of woke up with a slight headache. I've been drinking a little bit of water, have my coffee. Maybe it's in the air. I don't know. But everybody, I wish you guys all well. It sucks. I'm still here with you guys. So we can all sit here and brood with the headaches and make fun and laugh and what have you. Trust me, I wish I didn't know who Rey was. Yeah, I think that's the consensus here, really. I'll take Abaloth. She's horrifying. Rey could easily take on and win. Yeah. And what was it, Soul Assassin? I think it was you. Yeah, we were discussing this in our DM. And basically he came to the conclusion that Abaloth and Rey would join together and they would create the new Jedi Order. And then I said, yeah, it'll be a gray order because Abaloth is like, dark energy. She's dark side. She's chaos. So we came to the conclusion that they would create the new, or the gray Jedi. It's implied that the quote unquote canon version of Revan, as mentioned in Rise of Skywalker guidebook, stayed a Sith Lord, no redemption, not the same character. No, it's never going to be the same character no matter what. When you look at Thrawn, he's not the same character either. So everything's in name only, just to dangle the member berries and say, oh yeah, well, EU fans, we're pacifying you. We're giving you something that you want. We're continuing this character. Bullshit. I call bullshit. That's plain and simple. I call bullshit. The fractured filter. Well, I wonder if Disney can do more damage than Revan in the BioWare had with the book and Sator. Yeah, I'm going to get down to that super chat real quick and then I'll scan back up. So let me see who did I leave off. Fractured filter with that one. Okay. All right. I don't want to ignore this one here or wait too long. So Albunas at $10 super chat. Thank you so much. I chose Rey because she's amazing in every way. Shooting Sith lightning with no training is like amazing. Anyway, popping in to show love and support. Wish I was on the panel with you, Revan is a EU icon. Well, thank you so much for popping in. I think you guys had the Dark Council last night and I missed that. Kind of curious. I'm going to go back and catch that replay because, you know, he went in with the blonde. Well, he at least took a picture with the blonde wig saying that he's going to go watch Barbie. And I think it was Mark with the C was saying how proud he was of Abonos for doing that. And I was like, I'm not. I'm joking around. I'm always joking around. I'm always, joking around like that. But I said, I'm not. So, but thank you again for your continued support. I'm going to have to go catch that replay to see what you guys had to say on that. I have no opinion. And so just been watching the good, the bad, and the ugly back and forths about that movie, and I think the conclusion I'm going to say is that Hollywood is going down. It's the shits, right? We know that. And sometimes drastic measures needs to happen so the direction could be changed. And so with that being said, I'm not going to support any movies right now. That's just my choice. I will watch everybody's review, good, bad, and ugly, because it's entertaining or whatever, but with the Barbie, it's proof that people will like bad things and movies will make a lot of money even though their content is bad. And then sometimes movies with great content won't make that much. So we can't really just go off the box office on if the movie is successful. So there's always those outlying factors. But I'm not here to discuss this, the financial and movie dynamics and stuff like that. So, but I'll catch that replay and see how that went. So Matt G says Ray gets her powers from Olive Garden. I want some breadsticks now. I want some breadsticks. And I love the tiramisu there. And let's see. Precisely. Question. What is your favorite version of Revan? The Mandalorian war hero, the Sith Lord, or the redeemed hero? Oh, you guys. So if that's for me, oh my God, I don't know. Because they all contribute to each other in one way, shape, or form, right? So anybody in the chat wants to also answer this, feel free to do that. I don't know, because I really like the Mandalorian war hero arc, but I really like the redemption part too, and him forming a family. So that's a tough one. Good question. So people can answer this, and we can think about it or just stew on it a little bit. If you guys are not sure yet, we can talk about this in a little bit. Come back to this question. Thank you, Soul Assassin. And let's see here. CBR screwing out. They are all same garbage. Yeah. And that's the thing. Okay. So we use it for Cringe Factor, but like I said, there is directional proof on revealing what's going on. Like what's going on with the properties that I'm discussing and the lore that I'm discussing. So I'm not saying that these are accurate articles, but they are revealing some truth. There's some truth underlying in these articles, which is frightening because usually when a CBR Screen Act comes out with a certain topic that's, revealing something, then the company follows suit. So it's kind of crazy how that goes. So even though these are cringe, garbage tier pop culture sites, I guess you can say, there are some truth in them too. So there's that catch 2020, I guess you can say. I don't know. Brandon the Awesome says, I have yet to play KOTOR, so I'm a little shaky on the era that era of stars. You could play it, but then also there's the novels as well. So there's both. So we have the games, which the story in it, the story in it that meshes with the book is the canon story, and then how you could play it and how you build your characters, who you choose your character to be, blah 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 blah. may not really have happened, so it's one of those games where you can kind of almost create I wouldn't say your own scenario, but there's options that are non-canon options that you can play. So how you play may not have happened in the canon. So, but a lot of people, like I said, came into the Knights of Old Republic through the game more so than the novel. So I, on the other hand, came in through the novel. So it's going to be interesting and to discuss because, some of the gameplay, people, there's a lot. I don't know if I wouldn't say it's a lot more richer. Maybe it's a little bit more details than that. I wouldn't know. I haven't had a chance to really compare the two. Caffeinated Wolf says the pretty lady knows that the Old Republic is my jam. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Irrelevant except the parts they want to plagiarize and ruin, that is. Yes, and I do have a community, and I had a little flux of people coming into my community on YouTube, or not YouTube, Twitter. I'm inviting people, don't wait for me to post lore. I want you to share your favorite parts of Star Wars, your favorite characters, your favorite planets, your favorite story or scenarios, I guess you could say, and share and create the discussion. So Soul Assassin does a great job on doing that. But once you're part of the community, feel free to share. Now that site is not about bashing Disney, so none of that. It's about discussing novels, comics, games, characters, going in depth in the lore, maybe the art of Star Wars, whatever that is pertaining to George Lucas era, alien species, technology, whatever. You create the conversation, even discuss like a novel maybe that you wish could have been better, or maybe you found something faulty and wish it, and you could have, you can give insight like, I like this story, but some of it's faulty and let's discuss it. What could have been, kind of deal. So it doesn't always have to be like good things or what you exactly like. It could be a debate on something that could have been better, something you didn't like. Because we all have stories and parts of the Star Wars lore that we love and that we don't like. And so creating that conversation is what that community is about. It gets your head out of this, what we talk here about compare and contrast both lores, Disney and George Lucas. And it really keeps, your mind in a positive place towards what you care about in Star Wars. Sometimes we can get the Stockholm syndrome where it's like we always we start feeling defeat, but we don't feel like we have anywhere to go about what's going on with Disney Star Wars and the direction they're taking it. So that community is about coming back into the heart of Star Wars, just like this channel is. That's why I do Cringe Factor, because then we get to laugh at all this bullshit. Gather my Revan Knights. Yes, we're going to get going on that here pretty soon. I know you guys been chatting all along. Here, let me pull this up. Here we go. So, me, I like to be extra. I didn't create a slide this time. I just wanted to give a breakdown on Revan, on, when he was born, when he died. There's, if you know the story, like for 300 years is when it's almost like he had like a split personality. It's like he had his Force ghost that went to the Force, basically. I can't even talk right now. And then the dark side of him that didn't want to go, that stayed alive and stuff. So that's where people say, well, he was both light and dark. Well, it was almost like a split personality, I guess you can say, but not in like a psychotic way. Like you have today, like you see in, our society and stuff. So, of course, he was born 3,994 BBY, battle before Yavin. And the planet region is unknown. And he died around about 3,637 BBY, planet Yavin 4. So, we have the ending story of him, how long he stayed with his body, I guess you could say, to defeat the Emperor. And then of course, I'm just breaking this down, but his spouse was Bastila Sean, and then his child. So he only had one child, but then they had grandchildren. He has grandchildren. Is Vener Sean. His affiliations was Jedi Order, the Ravenshist, the Galactic Republic, either under Republic Mercy Corps or Republic Military. Sith, basically Darth Revan, Sith Empire, and Order of Revan. And if you look into the history of the Rule of Two, he is the catalyst for that. He is the one where Darth Bane got the idea because he studied Revan's holocron. So that's very interesting how much this man here influenced the galaxy. So he did participate in both the Jedi Civil War and the Mandalorian War there. So I'm going to leave this up here. So just a little bit of, informational history here, not in depth, just very, very just to the point here. But we will get into his lore here. But let me go ahead and pull up this article first, and then we'll discuss some Revan some more. So I'm going to switch screens here. So this is from the Forbes here, and I'm just going to read a portion of this because we're not going to get into the dynamics of the sizzle reel Acolyte and how much they are, had made or put out or paid for pre-production, a part of the show. Okay. So let's see here, make sure I have on the right one here. Okay, here we go. Perhaps the biggest name amongst its ranks only came to light a few days ago when it was revealed that Keanu Reeves will have a cameo in the show. He joins Matrix co-star Carrie-Anne Moss, who was reportedly playing a Jedi when the Warriors were at peak of their power. So they say the Jedi are warriors. They are not warriors. Not in the sense. Well, I guess you could say they are. They're not soldiers. There we go. We clarify that. In a recent podcast interview with the Entertainment Weekly showrunner, Leslie Headland revealed that the Acolyte takes place around 100 years before the events of the first Star Wars prequel, The Phantom Menace. So it says he joins the Matrix co-star who is reportedly playing. So I think they're talking about her playing a Jedi. However, it doesn't really say anything about his direction yet. Like, is he playing a Jedi? Is he playing a Sith? We don't know. So unless they meant the Matrix co-star is reportedly playing a Jedi or he is, that information is vague. So with that being said, we have many within this week excited, and I don't know why, because I just gave you the dates on when he was born, when he existed in the timeline, and we know that Disney brought him in as a nostalgia, like dangle the key, kind of like, for naming, having ships named after him. So they brought him in, and through name. And so now this gives Disney a chance to bring him in further to follow through with him being the Sith Lord. Yeah. But Acolyte, the sizzle reel, happens 100 years before the prequel, the first prequel installment, The Phantom Menace. We know that Disney Star Wars or Disney Lucasfilm doesn't really keep continuity with characters of their own and characters that they bring in. Because if they did, they wouldn't be bringing and rehashing these characters into a position, into a lore that they don't fit in. So this is the rumor here that people are excited about. I don't know why, but they are excited about to have, hopefully, Keanu play Revan in the sizzle reel. And it doesn't fit. He doesn't fit in that timeline. Revan's contribution, like I said, one of the major contributions is the rule of two. But the rule of two is known to have occurred 1,000 years before the Phantom Menace. That's even in the Disney lore. But just like I said, they don't keep continuity. And it gets discouraging since he is one of the most beloved EU characters. He's not a legacy character as in like legacy for movies, because all these characters that they're bringing in are basically a legacy character rather than the EU or movie. But just to clarify, he's one of the most beloved EU characters that has ever been established, and this is in a lore that is way before we start seeing the Jedi Order of the prequel era. And he left holocron. He left information about himself, about the Jedi, about the Sith, all of that. He left that. He left a holocron that influenced Darth Bane, which then influenced him to create the rule of two. Then over the 1,000 years influenced and led us to have Sidious, enact the final revenge of the Sith. So there's a series of events that had happened that is pivotal to this character, Revan, that cannot fit within the Disney lore other than just in name only. And how they will switch up the character and his growth, all of that will just bastardize the character even more. And I know it'll bring a huge outrage, like with Caffeinated Wolf and others that absolutely adore the story arc behind Revan and everything that had happened. So whether this is true or not, people are cheering it on. I don't believe it, but then I wouldn't put it past them that they would. Sorry. Yeah, so let's see here before we get into the lore. So I'm going to take this off the screen and put this one back on. All right, so let's see here. Abaloth, a big, scary Cthulhu-like force goddess Rey. She can bypass the compactor. Abaloth from TCW, right? I haven't seen the Beyond the second season. So she was never a part of TCW. She was used as a retcon of Mortis arc, in a sense. Changing, who they are a bit, especially the father. I don't think the poll is even fair. Abaloth is like Sauron. You destroy their physical form, but they exist in the spiritual plane. Yeah, that's Abaloth. So howdy, Laura and chat. How are you doing, Zaggerot315? Obviously, let's see here. All right, I am behind on all these here. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. I'm sorry. I know it says one of my favorite Star Wars YouTubers did an alternate ending to the Revan novel, and it's 100 times better. Okay. It's always fun to see these what ifs by some of these fans. Yeah, I have no interest in Western made movies and TV. Let me go ahead and scroll down. Oh, God, you guys had a lot to say. I hate to miss over on some of the things you said here. It's more fun discussing things we love than things we hate. Yeah, we can make fun of the things we hate, right? And laugh about it. And that's what Cringe Factor is about. All right. Let me check the poll here. And what time is it? So it's going to be another 20 minutes before I shut the poll down. So if you haven't voted yet, who would win, Rey or Abaloth. So a versus, this is a versus poll, Rey or Abaloth. So Rey is at 5% and Abaloth is at 95%. And so far, we have 20 votes. So thank you guys for voting. This will stay up for 20 more minutes. I'm glad you're back. That's okay. You do what you need to do. Do what you need to do. Oh God, that stuff was dumb. All right. So with that, let's get into some of the Revan lore here. So we know, like I said, I've displayed a basic information about him, just very vague, just on the point. I wouldn't say vague, but on the point here. So just like that question that Soul Assassin shared, if you haven't had a chance to decide which Revan you preferred, or like the timeline of Revan's life that you preferred, please share. Yeah. So where do I start? So Revan was a person who who wanted to take action when they were on the cusp of war. And the Republic did not want to respond to the Mandalorian, war that has been beginning. And there's a reason why there. And all of this, everything that happened that Revan has responded to in some way, shape, or form was devised by the Emperor of the time. And some of you guys may know who this Emperor is. I'm not going to disclose anything just yet. And he thought that the Jedi should respond in helping with this threat. And the Order was like, nah, we're not going to do anything. So he took it on himself to respond and join in with the Republic because they to help against the Mandalorians. And so this is what you call the Mandalorian War. So that was a very interesting time for Revan and time for the Republic during that time. And this is one of the questions that Soul Assassin has asked about is if, like, what do you prefer? And he asked if you like the Mandalorian Revan, and stuff. So, and a lot of this led to the Revanchist movement. The Revanchist, I think I said the Revanchist, Revanchist movement. So, and of course, they did defeat the Mandalorians. They do, and Revan basically during that time, the Mandalorians. It wasn't about the Darksaber. It was about the Mandalorian mask. We know that the Mandalorians came to be as a people, as a culture, by the tongue. And that how they wore their armor, they wore their masks, their Mandalorian armor. They settled from Coruscant to what we know as Mandalore. And so the mask is the one that the Mandalore wore. So if you had that mask, then you were Mandalore. So Revan is the one that defeated and donned the mask and hid the mask of the Mandalore, because once you hide it, once it's hidden, it puts them in limbo, I guess you could say. So if you know the lore and stuff, it kind of puts them in limbo and stuff like that. And but during his fight against the Mandalores, he did don a mask of a fallen Mandalore too as well. So let me go to the chat real quick because I'm looking at something here. Scroll down. I know you guys have a lot to say. The Jedi were cautious after multiple wars, correct, and somewhat began to question their ways after Revan redemption. Then the Dark Wars happened and they got wiped out on Qatar by Darth Nihilus. Yes, and there's so many like Sith Lords that occurred during this. Not so many, but like some that are very pivotal and very, I guess you could say, they, in a way, and I guess I'm going to say this, in a way, put Vader to shame for like how intimidating they were. Yes, he crippled the Mandalorians when he hid the mask of Mandalore, correct. And I thought that was very interesting. So yes, it's kind of weird. I'm going to get into Mandalorian lore a little bit here because it's relevant to this. The Mandalorians had that mask that was passed down from the original Tong leader, Mandalore, and it was relevant for a very long time. Well, for some time, not a very long time. Then you got to tell me a sword became relevant, and that if you don this dark saber sword, then you were Mandalore too? Because after this thing with the Mandalore mask, they switched directions to where the Mandalorians like, we really don't want to be ruled anymore. And I'm just saying everything in a nutshell. I'm not getting too technical. And so the mask became basically irrelevant, right? And we still had the Mandalore, right? There was a lot of revision going on here. A lot of revision that probably needs its own video to talk about, right? Or its own CAF chat or whatever. But there was a lot of revision that happened to where when you get into the future of the Mandalorian culture, is more or less the Mandalore is the one that was the one who would call people to arms or call people together to defend the Mandalorian way of life. However, they were there just for a suggestion on keeping the people together and keeping the culture together. Because the Mandalorians didn't want to be ruled. They didn't want to be ruled by a dictator. So they got rid of this dictatorship, basically. And that's where the mask became almost, near like irrelevant, I guess you can say. Like I said, I'm compressing everything into this little nutshell here. And when Revan defeated the Mandalore, when they've defeated the Mandalore and he hidden the mask, which put the Mandalorians in limbo and made them kind of rethink their direction in a sense. So this was kind of like a catalyst to the direction the Mandalorians went. So he not only influenced the Jedi, the Sith, the rule of two, but he was also the catalyst for the direction too of the Mandalorian deciding that they didn't want to be ruled or have a dictatorship. If you think about it, there's a lot of lore going on here within this single person and his influence that I think is very fascinating. So whether you played the game or read the books or did both, when you get into the lore, when you get into the nitty-gritty parts of this and really just dissect and all that, which I love to do, you realize like how in depth and rich this history is during this time frame. Who were the influencers and what happened? What changed the galaxy for better or for worse? What changed the Jedi Order for better or worse? What changed the Sith for better or worse? And to think about him being inserted into the Disney lore is abomination, basically, towards this character, towards what was established. It was brilliant on how he was written, how they connected so effortlessly. This lore going forward, how it ties into Bane, how it ties into Palpatine, and how basically maybe how it may have influenced the direction of the Order on relationships, which goes into Anakin's fall. Because at the time they still kind of frowned upon having, family relationships and stuff like that, but it wasn't as dogmatic, I guess you can say. And I could be wrong. Maybe this is the beginning of it, of the dogmatic views of attachment when it came to families and creating families, children, wife, all of that, or spouses. So it's very interesting to really sit down and think, okay, so what are these events that influence what we see in the PT? Are these the catalysts? And really diving deep into that to come to that conclusion. Because by the time we have the fall of Vader, or not the fall of Vader, sorry, by the time we have the fall of Anakin, and when we go through the dark times and we lead into the ending of the dark times, the ending of the Empire, the OT era, if you want to call it that, you see the Jedi evolving. Because by the time we get Luke into training with Yoda and Obi-Wan, they're not concerned about attachments. And we get to, like I said, I will always call back onto Revenge of the Sith novelization about how Yoda realized the Jedi failed to evolve. For the thousands of years, especially in his lifetime, the Jedi were training to defeat the Sith from the past. While the Sith were lying in hiding, studying the Jedi, and evolving their ways. So think about that. Think about all this rich history just pertaining just for that. Just for the Jedi versus Sith. And who are the influencers? Where did it come from? How did it happen? Oh my God, my cat just jumped up on my chair and behind me. Ouch. Your claws hurt, little one. But anyways, yeah. So even if you're really privy and you know the lore for this era that we're talking about, Revan and Knights of the Old Republic and stuff, just sitting down and really just getting into, start diving into the lore and dissecting a little bit here and there, and start, taking the strings and linking it to what it influenced in the future. Pretty amazing. Melissa Laura says, "Oh my gosh, these IT issues, laugh out loud. I'm glad I can listen to you, Alora. These people tripping." Yeah, I know everybody's commenting on what we're talking here. So I'm not necessarily getting too in depth in his lore right now, but we are, like I said, I'm dissecting everything that is basically relevant to this character and relevant to the Star Wars lore, George Lucas era. And it's amazing. And what's amazing too is George helped create the rule of two. So, so even if he didn't help create Revan character and this lore here, there's still relevancy to who Revan is and his relevancy to the lore and all that. Yeah, several Old Republic Sith Lords put Vader and Sidious to shame. Right. There was so much going on with the Sith Lords, like Nihilus and the Emperor or Vitiate and all of them. There was... Just imagine, someone like a Sith Lord draining the Force from people, planets, from life, the Force life from planets and people to remain and stay alive and relevant, and how strong they were. That's what scared Revan. Revan knew that was a threat to the galaxy, threat to everybody, including his family. That was his purpose here. But he also sees through that the Sith were destroying each other too, in a sense. He recorded all this on a holocron, which influenced Darth Bane with all the knowledge that he put together from his experience with these Sith Lords and with the Jedi and all this stuff. A lot of knowledge there. The raid on Coruscant Temple 400 years after Revan, what would the Mandalorians do in the meantime? So what are you talking about? The raid from Legacy of the Force? Oh, that's a long, no. That's way after. Way. That's not, yeah. So, you know, the Mandalorians, they're a pretty neat culture of, you know, and they evolved into this fascinating culture that we see in that when we start getting like Boba Fett and Jango Fett and them into it. And Jango Fett is another one that influenced the Mandalorian culture, which again, that one is going to have to be another separate discussion here. You know, very, very interesting. Hey OG, watching some Scotland. Nice. We have 4 more minutes. So those who are popping in, please hit the like button. Vote on Abaloth versus Rey. Who do you think would win? If you're familiar with who Abaloth is, because everybody should know something about Rey. Go ahead and vote. And I will take a look at it here pretty soon. So please vote. Soul Assassin says the rule of two Sith would have had the same power, if not the Darth Gravid going light side and destroying a lot of knowledge. F that guy. That's another thing too. I wish we would have had a little bit more of an evolution timeline for the rule of two. We got hints of it here and there, and then the Bayat happened, you know. So, you know, we had Bane's apprentice, and what could have happened, you know, with that situation and going forth, and who were her predecessors. Revan's contributions to the galaxy in Star Wars lore cannot be overstated. Correct. Please smash the like button. And I'm going to say this. This does not supersede the Skywalkers whatsoever. So I don't think I've ever heard anybody, but I'm pretty sure there has been a few. There's always someone. We know that. There's always someone that would say that this character is an OP character and supersedes or is trying to be better than the Skywalkers or trying whatever, you know, whatever that kind of talk is, you know what I'm saying? So, but I don't think so, because this character has nothing to do with the Skywalker timeline other than influencing it. It doesn't take away from their arc, from their position, from their fall, their gains, their glory, all of that, you know. So if anybody tries to say that Revan, you know, oh my God, my cat's still my cat keeps jumping up here. Ouch! If I don't have my camera on, but my cat jumps behind the chair and sits behind on top of my chair here. But when he jumps, sometimes he ends up latching onto my shoulder, and that shit hurts. But like I said, people try to, you know, there are people that could say that, you know, this guy is OP and trying to be better than the Skywalkers or what have you. But there's always that one person. I haven't seen it personally, but still, there's always that one person. And I don't believe he does. I just believe he contributes to, like, when you look at the history of Star Wars, past to present, future, there's always going to be a character that influences these main characters that George brought to us, right? There's always an influence. And that influence just makes the history richer, makes the timeline, like that current event richer, and makes the person more interesting. Just like there's people that probably, you know, the people that influence Revan here in this timeline here, you know, we have that, and that's called successful writing. I honestly think if the Jedi exiles stayed and rebuilt the Jedi Order, it would have been similar to Luke's, but she left to find Revan, and the surviving Jedi Masters return and changed nothing. Yeah, that's the thing. And I think that people were kind of disappointed in her arc a little bit and wishing there was a little bit more. So I think that, you know, you're getting onto something with that, Soul Assassin. And I know I read this, but I'm going to show it one more time. So thank you for listening in. Ooh, what are you doing? This guy is being a little asshole. Darth Toby is on the run here, you guys. Darth Treya being the biggest. Treya as well, and she's one of the most intrinsically written character in the lore. Let's see here. Probably from Darth Malgus. Probably. So there's, like I said, there's so many influences from this era that really makes Star Wars interesting. It gives us a history of like, okay, so how did these events evolve to where they were? What happened, and stuff. And that's amazing. That's amazing. So let's see here. It was Drew Carpathian that is the one that written this character and worked with LucasArts and all that to develop this character here. So I thought it was, he was right on with some of these on direction and stuff. And we know that Lucasfilm influenced their authors to keep consistent within the lore, have it make sense, write coherent stories, all of that. So I'm just going to plug this in here. If you can find it, go ahead and share it, Soul Assassin. But Open Airlock Policy, Tim he writes for the expandeduniverse.com, which I was invited to write for, but I haven't had a chance to even submit anything or an idea on what kind of series I want to write and share for Star Wars Expanded Universe. And he wrote about how the authors were encouraged to, like, even the early authors, how they were encouraged to use the Western games of the time and all the source books that they had at the time to create the lore, so that everything that they written felt like and was Star Wars. Because those Western game books, even back in the early stages, really broke down what a character was, what a species was, what a planet is, what all of that, the dynamics of Star Wars there, because it gave the player, an idea how they should act when they build their character and go into the scenarios and stuff like that. So check out that article by Open Airlock Policy. It's amazing. I did share it on my Twitter, and then it's also inside the community page. So check that out when you have a chance. It's brilliant there to how he shared how the company, even back then, influenced the authors to keep in continuity with what's going on within Star Wars and made it feel like Star Wars. So let's see here. We're coming up. Let me check now the poll. I'm going to end the poll here. So if you haven't had a chance to vote while I talk about this, get your vote in. So who would win? So this is a versus type poll, Rey or Abaloth. So Rey is at 9%. So 9% of you guys were like, okay, Rey. And I kind of understand your guys' view for how she was written. And then Abaloth, 91%. So you guys, thank you for sharing. If you guys want to, say anything else about this right here, we're going to get into it here pretty soon. In fact, we need to start switching gears so we can get into Cringe Factor. But I do want to discuss a little bit more on Revan here before we move on. The Old Republic factions were far more powerful than the Clone and Imperial era. Luke's Academy, in my opinion, started to get back to the same level of the ancient Jedi during Legacy. That's a good point right there. Legacy too. So going forward, going back in the timelines, you really see how well and coherent everything was written. Yeah, there were some hiccups here and there. I'm not gonna, I'm not saying that is absolutely perfect, no flaws. There are hiccups. But when you go and dissect one side of the timeline of the history of Star Wars, you can always root back an influence from the past. The Sith rule of two began its degradation after Darth Cagnus. Yeah, and then once we got to, and this is another thing too, is once we got to Palpatine, that's when we started seeing a change. There are some things that he adhered to, but you could start seeing a change, which I think is fascinating, because if you didn't have a constant, like, things are going to evolve basically, and when you're in such a power, and your power, you're for this lust of power, all this other stuff, you're going to see maybe things change significantly, but who knows? Because the Jedi order never changed. They became dogmatic because they kept they were too stern in the rules. However, the Sith, I wouldn't say they're too lax, but there was a lot of like this personal power wanting to do it their own way as well. So there's those differences there. Pretty interesting stuff, just to even break down the rule of two as well, and the evolution of that. The state of the galaxy was far different in Luke's and the Skywalker's era than it was look like in the Old Republic. Yes, very, very true. Very much true, because you still had this, the Sith and the Jedi already were split factions, and the influence of the true Sith as well for the dark side, and the faction of the Jedi that split off. There's that history. So the history of the Jedi, they were all one faction, and of course they end up having disagreements, I guess you can say, and put it in a little sugar-coated nutshell. And the meeting of the true Sith and other influences for the faction that split away and started, correlating with the dark side more and more. And like I said, I'm just briefly putting everything in a nutshell, because there's a lot going on there too. We get the Sith. And then we have the Jedi who, stood for the light and started going their direction and eventually becoming more dogmatic in certain ways. So it's very interesting how all of this played out. And this man could be the symbol of this Jedi Sith faction split as well, and how it tore these light side, or these force sensitive users apart. You can say he kind of like mirrors that in an essence of a being, if you want to go into that kind of explanations, because when his mind was influenced, and when he was held captive, and he became a force ghost, but his body and the dark side, or whatever, of him stayed alive, and it stayed alive for a purpose. We all know that. You can kind of see that there's a split faction, because even in his own essence, his force ghost versus his dark side living form, they fought against each other during that time. And so that right there, you can kind of say, oh, does this reflect the Jedi before they split, or as they were splitting? I don't know. I'm like analyzing this, more and more. This is what I do, is I sit down. I'm like, okay, what the heck? Okay, so this versus this, how did it influence? And I can see this in this character, how it kind of reflects on the beginning of the split of the Jedi. Very interesting. Very, like I said, I like to get into stuff and dissect things. That's just who I am. There's always one person who has to try to ruin it for everyone, like prequel haters. Yep. Mitra and Revan returning from the dark regions would have for sure changed the course of the Jedi Order. Correct. And let's see, Drew Carpathians is easily my favorite Star Wars writer. Yes, he's the one that contributed a lot. And then what he did, and then when he didn't contribute, those authors and creators who came after him, kind of spun off from his story and seeing what his vision was about for these characters. Very interesting. It's incredible that they collectively created the lore, as Disney constantly is breaking its own lore to the point that there is no point in reading their books and comics. And this is the article here. So save this, read it after. Very great. It'll give you a great perspective on how well Lucasfilm during George's time kept continuity and wanted the writers to keep the feel, the look, everything according to Star Wars, basically. Very good. Now, before we start moving into Cringe Factor, I want to know, what is your favorite scene or event regarding Revan? And who is your favorite Sith during that time? Oh boy, this is a loaded one here, you guys. It's a loaded one. I'll give you guys some chance here. So your favorite event involving Revan and your favorite Sith during this time. You have Malak. You have Nihilus. There's so many here. Malak was basically his apprentice. Mitra was his informal one. And they also said Scourge was informal as well. That can be debated, but I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys would agree. So, who is your favorite Sith of this time and why? And your favorite event involving Revan? There's so many that you can choose from. So I'm sorry if this is like loaded and it has to make you really think. I like to ask thought-provoking questions. I want you to really get into the lore, what you know, and really play around with like what really resonated with you for the story, the timeline, and the events that happened for Revan. And I want to do a Revan chest lore video here, so stay tuned for that. I'm finishing up the Luke Skywalker compare and contrast one that should possibly go up Monday. But I want to do a Revan chest lore one here, and just get into that a little bit. So those who love Revan, I'm pretty sure that's something for you guys to look forward to. Yeah. And then maybe eventually, because I didn't think about this until now, and I was like, we're going to discuss Revan's lore, and I plan on getting into a lot more. But then when you sit down and break down the events that happen and how it influences the timeline going forward into like the movie eras and stuff like that, or the PT, the OT, and stuff like that, it's all fascinating. You can't help but discuss like the influences and all this, and this can easily turn into something that for like 3-hour discussion. But I don't do my live streams that long, and I always want to keep other things. I always want to keep events, like possible events, something that you guys can look forward to. So leaving some things open-ended, so we have other things we could talk about. Maybe a part 2 next week. And we can go over more of the events of Revan during that time frame and what it meant. Getting into the Emperor and how he had stages, how his plans of ruling and taking over the galaxy were in these stages, beginning with the Mandalorian War, and how he influenced the Mandalorians and deceived them as well. That's crazy, right? How he deceived. And you would think that, you thought Palpatine he does have some brilliance, but you thought that his plan was brilliant on leading up to Revenge of the Sith, basically. Look at Revan's time frame and who he had to face. who was the mastermind on all these events, and Revan caught on. So is this like a mirror to like poetry it rhymes to the PT with Sidious? Maybe in some events. So there you go. Let me see what you guys have to say, and then we'll get into Cringe Factor. Okay, let's see here. I don't. There's any evidence that suggests Luke's order was somehow night and day stronger than Old Republic order. Oh, that's I don't think his order was stronger than the Old Republic order, but it was more structured. That's a good question, or that's a good thing right there. Yeah. But his influence on changing the direction was phenomenal. And that's a good debate right there. Was it stronger? Was it better? Soul Assassin says, I think there was Sith Lord that wanted to be like Revan, but got the name wrong and called himself Darth Revan. look up that guy's story. It's something. I will check that out. I don't recall that one, but that would be a good research for me. Drew Safian talks Revan. So there you go. Bane in Vegas. Okay, so I'll have to take a look at that video too. So guys, go ahead and copy this here and watch it later as well. I see the Old Republic as a lot of Jedi realizing their mistakes and laying the groundwork to what Luke would finally fix in his new Jedi Order. That's interesting because Luke, some things he didn't know that needed to be changed because there was so much Sidious destroyed. Like Luke was even questioning if marriage was allowed. He never knew. And when he got married to Mara Jade, and this was out of the novel, what do you call it? It's where they find the outbound flight. Sorry if I can't think of the name right now, but he was sitting in line with Mara in bed, and they were discussing, what the old order was about, basically, and if marriage was frowned upon in the old order. So that was something that he never really fully knew about, in a sense, to have corrected it. I think that was one of those that were a happy little correction that he didn't understand, because Yoda or Obi-Wan never got into this attachment kind of speech that they did when you see them inside or in the prequel era. Revan first putting on the Mandalorian mask. Awesome. You're like, ooh, okay. XR Kun is criminally underrated. Do you think he would put up a decent fight with Revan? Ooh, good question. I think it would probably be a good fight. Honestly, I think it would. Let's see here. Yeah, I think it would be a great fight too. It'd be something worth seeing. Any of all my time favorite Revan moments is when he broke free from Darth Nyrus and annihilated her with her own lightning. Yes. Okay, I could see what you're getting there. Luke's order was definitely more structured than it was in the Old Republic, but that was easier to do when you're starting from scratch. Revan and Bastila were asked to go away for their ideals. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. They were asked to go away for their ideals or whatever. And so is this the beginning that started turning into a dogmatic way of the order? That's what I was approaching earlier. So that's something, like I said, we can dissect a lot of this lore within here and think, okay, so how they were treated, how Revan acted, or how they shunned, marriage or relationships and stuff when we seen it in the Old Republic during that time. They were still a little bit lax about it, but still. how that possibly turned into their dogmatic ways from maybe seeing and experiencing things over the years, but then not realizing that maybe their first shunning, in a sense, and talking against, in a sense, before fully banning, is what led to their dogmatic views. So you can go that way into that, get really into the psychology of that, but we don't have time for this. All right, so you guys, we're going to switch into Cringe Factor. So I hope you guys feel you're ready here. Let me go ahead and take this off here. We're going to have to do a part 2 of Revan and break down the events, like all the events, because we shared a lot here that went into more or less his story in a nutshell and how it led to the events of the future. So, and I wasn't planning on going that way. It's just how it happened organically. So, but like I said, you can, any part of the lore, you can get that way and how it influenced from past, present, future, right? Yeah, so maybe we'll have to do a part 2. Maybe next week we'll do a part 2 and we'll talk strictly events, or maybe, yeah, we'll talk the events within that time frame for Revan. And I think that would be something fun to talk about. And then it doesn't have to match what's going on with Cringe Factor. I like to talk about lore, but the reason why I brought up Revan in the first place is because of the rumors that are being circulated now on social media about Keanu Reeves possibly being Revan. And so instead of I wanted to discuss Revan because of that, to discuss how fascinating he is within the original lore. People need to hear this to know they're going to do a disservice to him. Instead of praising it, that they're going to do a disservice to him, inserting him in the Disney lore. A huge disservice. It's abomination, I guess you could say. Just like with Luke, just like with Yoda, but no one's even discussing that in length. It's like almost like we're just tired of this. But keeping the lore, the original lore, intact and in front of people helps people realize what is better than what they're trying to do today. So with that being said, let's talk about Abaloth now. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with this. We are transitioning now. That sounds funny, but I'm not going to go anywhere past that, into Cringe Factor.
So uncivilized.
All right, I'm just switching the articles on my screen here. So this is the handy dandy, always a top contributor to my Cringe Factor, Screen Rat. Ta-da! Yeah, so Screen Rat here. So those who voted, again, Ray got 9% on she would win over Abaloth, versus 91% of people favored Abaloth. So Abaloth basically is a character that was introduced in Fate of the Jedi. And I'm pretty sure this article will get into. I just briefly ran through this article last night. I was tired. I was like, we're going to use this. So some of the accounts that you might hear from me will be the first time account, other than, cringe account, than if I had already read through the whole damn thing myself earlier. So we'll get into this. But Abaloth, basically, she was introduced in the Fate of the Jedi, and it was a retcon on direction of who the people were in the Mortis arc, the Ones. And I think because Troy and them were asked to use some of TCW in this arc here for whatever reason, to kind of link the lore and stuff. And so I seen this as a sort of retcon. So those who read the Fate of the Jedi, I know a lot of people, not a lot, but there were a few that were upset that TCW arc, Mortis arc, was introduced in here. And I get it. I don't care for TCW. That's not like, that is a show that begins to bastardize the EU more and more. I believe today now it only belongs in Disney Star Wars, and that the EU is better off without it. But then you have these books that has some accounts of it. So Abaloth basically is the bringer of chaos. She is the opposite of the father, who is said to be balanced. But now, because they say she's the bringer of chaos, balance basically means peace. So now he's peace, because the opposite of chaos is peace, is structure, right? And then you have the dark and light, the brother and the sister. And so they're opposite of each other. They are just reflections of what the Force is in human embodiment, or in embodiment, or being embodiment, I guess you can say. But they are not any Force gods or celestials. So I'm going to read this last two comments here, and we'll get into this article. No true Republic fan worth their salt should honestly believe that Disney would do Revan justice if they actually are going to use him. Correct. Because some failed to successfully balance being a Jedi and have a family for centuries, as no one else was allowed to try to succeed, adding the burden to those who needed family. Right. Yep, that's a good way to look at that. They dare not tell the tale because they know good and well there will be anarchy no matter what they do. They can't handle backlash, just as canon fans can't handle legit criticism. So, okay, Kitty, the books are going to fall on you. Be careful. All right, so let's get into this article here. So again, Abaloth is this huge, like, very, very powerful dark side user, and who can take on and embody other beings if she wanted to. So she would go between bodies to keep herself, alive, I guess you could say. And she even embodied Celeste. What's her name? Yeah, Luke's one of his ex-girlfriends, Callista. They're not Celeste, Callista. So if you don't know the story. So this is by Kevin Erdman. Star Wars has already set up a terrifying villain for Rey's next movie, but will Lucasfilm dare tell the tale? So are they suggesting that Abaloth is the terrifying being? I don't know. Star Wars has a unique opportunity to debut a truly terrifying Legends villain in Rey's upcoming movie, having already set up the foe in canon. So set up a foe in canon? Is she Abaloth? I don't think she... Just because she was introduced... She wasn't introduced in TCW. Yeah, she's only in what you would call Legends now. So, there you go. Rey Skywalker's upcoming Star Wars movie may introduce the powerful villain Abaloth from Legends to face Rey. So in the original lore, to face Rey and the new Jedi Order. Wow. Abaloth, once a mortal woman who became an immortal Force entity, was imprisoned by the ones in the original lore, but could be freed in the canonical. How can she be freed when she's not even a part of the lore? That's a retcon. Do you think? I wonder if Dave Filoni liked that retcon. And it doesn't mean that it's a part of Filoni's thing in TCW. So doesn't mean it exists in there. That means they'll bring her in. Abaloth's release could be triggered by the shifts of the Force following the defeat of Palpatine and the unity of Rey and Ben Solo, making her a formidable foe. Oh, so Rey is possessing Ben, or Ben is possessing Rey? I mean, they say she's all the Jedi. Holy hell. Okay. Well, that's Disney lore for you. If you're going to watch it, more power to you, but it's not Star Wars. Rey Skywalker's upcoming Star Wars movie could feature a truly terrifying villain who's already been set up in the established canon. So you mean the established Disney lore, because the established canon, the canon's already been established under George Lucas. So, yeah. With the destruction of the resurrected Palpatine and the fall of his final order, it stands to reason that new darkness will rise. Oh, that's right. Because in the Disney lore, balance is both light and dark now. Balance was originally, has always been, not originally, is originally the light side. So when the force is being spoken about, it's usually referring to the light side. Keeping that in mind, Star Wars already has a villain from the original lore who would be perfect to face Rey and a new generation of Jedi Knights. Confirmed to be taking place 15 years after the events of The Rise of Skywalker, the new Star Wars movie starring, of course, Ridley, blah, 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 directed by Shermeen. It has not yet been revealed who or what kind of threat will likely emerge to endanger the galaxy far, far away. So you say, okay, it's not confirmed, but when you stated up here, it is confirmed. What the fuck is it? Okay, anyways. Let's scroll down here. So this is Abaloth here. This is one of her forms here. Dark, and of course, this big, huge, like jaw, gaping mouth. She also can present herself as gorgeous female woman, appealing to guys. She's just one of those kind of beings. That's who she is. She is a one, too, that was very needy when she came into the lives of the ones and just wanted to be loved. And the fear of losing because she was mortal and they're immortal, I guess you could say. I wouldn't say they're immortal because they could be killed. But anyways, she became a part of the ones, and they imprisoned her because she became this absolute chaos, like the chaos part of the dark side, I guess you could say. And she was imprisoned by the ones. But all she wanted is to be loved, to have people in her life and stuff like that. So kind of a tragic being if you get behind the perspective of this lady, the psyche of this being. That's what was set up in the lore. So that's what that's about, is having companionship. In the non-canon, so in the canon stories known, what the Disney labeled legends, the New Republic and Jedi Order were plagued by the dark and powerful force entity named Abaloth. So she ended up making her way in. If you haven't read the story, I'm not going to get details in the story. Also known as the bringer of chaos and the beloved queen of the stars. That's what she called herself, but she was the bringer of chaos, or the chaos of the ones. Abaloth was once a mortal woman who corrupted herself into an extremely dangerous immortal. So I think it's fascinating how we went and we talked about one spectrum or one side of the galaxy, like about 4,000 years ago, on what all the turmoil was going on there with all these strong Siths and stuff like that. And now we're on this other end where we have this entity here and a new threat, a new type of threat and stuff like that. So it shows how much the Star Wars lore evolved in with threats and stuff like that, which is very fascinating. Originally, Abaloth was a mere servant of the Force beings known as the Ones. Yeah, so basically she was a servant. Her and the Father fell in love, and so on. In Disney, the Ones were first seen during the Clone Wars, basically on the Mortis. It's the Mortis arc. While the son represented the dark side, the daughter. And so I already, stated all that. Legend saw the servant eventually, or original lore saw the servant eventually becoming the beloved member of the One's family, a mother who helped keep the son and daughter in balance. However, her mortal form grew into unlike her immortal family, causing the mother to grow desperate. Drinking and bathing in the nexus of the force known as the font of power and the pool of knowledge. Yes, I couldn't think of the first one, but there's the pool of knowledge, the font of power. The mother corrupted herself, officially becoming the force entity Abaloth. For her forbidden act and subsequent corruption, the ones imprisoned Abaloth who would attempt to break out any time the force was thrown out of balance, only to be defeated and imprisoned by the ones in an ongoing cycle. So she's the one that would help, basically, like that part of the force that will stir to correct the force the right way. So, like I said, these Mortis people, these Mortis beings, just were the embodiment of what the force did in its cycles and all this other stuff. However, I kind of question George's reasoning with this kind of arc, because he's always stated the light side is balance. In Legends, Abaloth's prison was constructed within the regions of the galaxy known as, or in the original lore, Ma. So it was the Ma system thing. We're not going to get into this part here. It makes sense such a dangerous place was used by the ones to imprison a mortal like Abaloth, blah, 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 blah. So let's go down here a little bit more what they have to say. Star Wars overreaching themes of balance and imbalance in the Force would make Abaloth a perfect villain for Rey upcoming Star Wars movie with a new Jedi Order. So they have to still continue the balance kind of theme, which is kind of what I'm glad about Star Wars from the past is when we got to the new Jedi Order era, it wasn't about this restoring balance arc again. I don't know about you guys. There's always going to be that struggle, good versus bad, right? Always. That's the overarching theme of Star Wars is good versus bad. However, when you get into Disney Star Wars and they want to make everything gray, ambiguous, how is this going to fit? Like people who watched Andor, it's praised as going into ambiguous gray areas, which was never the case. Yes, people had to make some weird decisions and stuff. That's what happens. Conflicting decisions, that's what happens. However, the underlying structure of Star Wars is always dark versus light or good versus bad. The heroes always end up on top, are always the moral setting, and the villains are the opposite. So with this being said, the way that Disney is taking the lore is more of an ambiguous gray side, to almost where you could think that the villains were the heroes and the heroes were the villains. And this has been being discussed since Andor and even before then. That's why I think Andor is not Star Wars. Like, even, I mean, I don't consider it part of Star Wars anyways, but even when people praise it as one of the best Star Wars, it's not, because even Gilroy himself said that he stepped away from all the main themes that George created, basically. So when you have a artist, a creator that says, I'm stepping away from these themes, and so it doesn't really feel like it's a good sci-fi show, right? But they stepped away from themes of Star Wars where it's not recognizable as Star Wars. Not even the good versus bad. But anyways, that's my little rant there. Not only was Palpatine defeated along with the Final Order and his Sith eternal cults, but Rey herself came stronger. And this is another reason, this is another thing where we get into like Revan would not fit in to the current lore, Disney lore. It's because of his influence, like we discussed earlier, on the Rule of Two, and even leading up to Palpatine, where he kind of started splitting off away from that. Still, that influence was there. But Rey herself came together with the redeemed Ben Solo and a rare and powerful Force dyad. Likewise, just as Palpatine declared himself to be all Sith, Rey relied on the power of all the Jedi to defeat the resurrected Empire. This is where it gets sticky. Oh my God, this is where I still question this. Okay, so if she was all the Jedi, then how come they didn't do that for Luke? How come they didn't say, oh, well, Luke, Luke's all the Jedi. Blah, 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 blah. Why is it that she gets all this stuff to be this hero here, and the one that they called the Hope to defeat the Emperor, redeem Anakin, they totally ignored him. The Jedi totally ignored him. Yoda and them, once they become Force Ghosts, they totally ignored him. He declared, I'm a Jedi like my father before me. But where was his, I'm all the Jedi? See how inconsistent it is right here alone? So many powerful shifts in the Force could easily serve as triggers leading to Abaloth being freed in the established canon, so in the established Disney lore. Abaloth's status as a threat far more dangerous and powerful than the Sith alone would make her quite dynamic and one on our new on-screen foe for Star Wars Galaxy, because they made Rey so overpowered, Mary Sue, that they have to bring in this being that Luke needed the Sith to help defeat. And yet it is questioned that she was truly defeated. She left a wound in Luke. So we know that eventually he probably dies from it, but we will never know what exactly happened. But because Rey, it's such a Mary, overpowered, easily defeat any Sith and stuff like that. I'm all the Jedi now. This person who's reading or wrote this article thinks that Abaloth should be her next threat because there's no one that can, defeat her or give her a challenge. See where this is going? However, only time will tell if Lucasfilm will be brave enough to debut such a massively dangerous and powerful villain in the Rey's upcoming Star Wars movie. So what do you guys think about this? Again, this is why I decided to do this versus poll here. So if you guys are tuning in, the poll's already down, but 9% said Rey would defeat Abaloth. 91 says Abaloth can defeat Rey. This right here shows, because of such bad writing and decisions for this character named Rey in Disney Star Wars, and how easily she could defeat and overcome things and all this other stuff, that they have to resort in this thought process. And I'm saying this is just an opinion article, but it's still cringe factor worthy, that this would be the only villain that maybe can give her a run for her money. Let's see here. Hopefully I'm okay and you guys can hear me. My internet is like deciding to pop up crazy again. Last night it went out. Let's see here. I'm scrolling up here. I missed some of your guys' comments. I'm sorry. And Christopher Barker, hello. How are you doing? Let's see here. Rey will have to battle a new villain, Darth Patriarchy. That is mortifying. Laugh out loud. I don't know what that one was about. Probably talking about Abaloth. Who knows? Yeah, she wasn't even established in the Disney lore. Let's see here. Come on. I clicked on you. Oopsie. I guess it was up. Abaloth tell me they're at least going to change the name. Creative freedom, roughly translated, means BS. Let's see here. Let's see here. Here we go. Come on. I clicked on you. Come on. Work for me. Oh, boy. I think I froze or something's going on. The internet is now acting up. Okay, there we go. Disney won't stop until they half-ass every single plot point in the expanded universe to their sheet. Sorry of an excuse canon. Yeah. Let's see here. Abaloth is a tragic villain. She just wanted to keep her family together. Exactly. She wanted love. She wanted to keep her family together. That's what the whole truth about her is that. Okay, so it says I'm insecure. Hopefully I don't sound like a robot to you guys. I got to call the company or get a hold of them and see what's going on with the service here. And by the way, when Abaloth was discovered, it wasn't in the New Republic anymore. It was the Galactic Alliance. Correct. It stopped being in our New Republic years ago. Correct. To tie it in to Couture remake, what if they resurrected Darth Treya somehow, or Revan? We discussed that a little bit. We got into that kind of topic here. All right. Christopher Barker says, hey, OG, currently taking a break from cleaning backyard, had a windstorm and it made a mess. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's crazy how that can happen. Also, I had to had the palm trees trimmed, plus it's hot as piss out. Oh, geez. Stay hydrated out. Yeah, that's crazy. Should have waited towards the evening time, maybe. I know, but sometimes you want to get shit done, right? Repeating story arcs diminishes what was accomplished before. Correct. And that's a great point right there, because not only if you have to look for a character out of the original lore to match the overpowered Mary Sue type character you written, not only means it's bad writing, but then also it gets into where you just don't have the creativity to write your own characters. This is the lack of creativity right here. Let's see here. I've also hated the restoring balance in the first prophecy. It's just stupid to me. I think it's okay for some instances because the Force is always going to go off balance and stuff, but you don't have to have that in every single fucking arc ever. And I'm glad that part, like when you get into the lore, a lot of it, like there was different villains and different threats and stuff like that. So that was a welcomed thing when you progressed. Highest for Arizona 3 days in a row, 119 degrees. It's scorching hellfire here. Holy shit. Stay hydrated. Just being a well-written Star Wars show doesn't equal good Star Wars. Correct. There's so many elements that go into that. It's especially for Star Wars, since it's a single history timeline type of franchise, or it was. It also goes into keeping continuity and the development of the characters pertaining to that time frame. And are you also considering past history happen in the future? So there's a lot of that. Let me see here. Just being a well-written sci-fi show doesn't equal it being a good Star Wars. Correct. I am all the Jedi, so retarded. Come on, screen. Dude, you can do it. Yep. And Zim is here. I can see some Star Wars stories stepping away from the good versus evil themes, working like Tales from the Mos Eisley. Those are like, we're going into the nitty gritty of all the bad stuff, what's going on in the bad thing. But the overall arcing theme is good versus bad. So, yeah, the overarching theme is that. But, yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Nothing else. Wasn't Vader redeemed by him sacrificing himself to save his son? His son is the one that redeemed him. Vader never redeemed himself. So, yeah. And that's even what George stated as well. If you want to get into to the appeal to authority, I guess you could say, that I use a lot when people start using George and everything. But yeah, it was Luke who redeemed his father, because without Luke influence his father, pleading with him, doing that psychological manipulation of Vader returning back to Luke, returning to the light side, all of that, and his cries for helps by saying, Father, please help me, and all of that happened before then, that was the catalyst. He's the one that redeemed Anakin. Anakin just needed a step. Once he realized, like, Luke's sincerity, the love of his family, that is the reason why he fell. So he went from falling to the dark side in a selfish way to save his wife, to being redeemed by his son, because he always wanted a family. He anticipated his family and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, that's another thing I can go and dissect and we can talk about and stuff like that. Like I said, I like to get into things and start dissecting and getting into the nitty gritty of everything as well. Luke didn't need all Jedi to defeat Palpatine. He just his father's love and the confidence of himself, right? The confidence of himself and his ability. That's the difference here, you guys, ladies and gents. Luke had the love of his father, the love of himself, the confidence of himself, and his conviction. That's all he needed. I just pointed that out because that's such a stupid arc. I am all the Jedi. So you're saying you can't defeat, and so they're implying all these Jedi that are giving you the strength now, possessing you, or whatever you want to call it, are saying you're not strong enough, maybe confident enough, assured enough, maybe not enough conviction for self, confidence for self, who knows. But Luke, on the other hand, he had all of that. He had the love of family, the support of his masters, his conviction of how he was raised, his confidence that he built, the maturity that he built, the strength that he built to face the Emperor and say, I am a Jedi like my father before me, and face the Emperor. That is such a magnificent art compared to I am all the Jedi. Hands down. Hands down. I bet Starkiller could take down Rey with no problem. That's another thing. I don't know. Because the type of character she was made to be, who knows? Quick reuse a villain from they're canon books. Non-canon is Disney. I hear you fine. Thank you so much. Yeah, because my internet since last night has been shoddy, and I was afraid that I would have to connect to my hotspot on my phone, which could throw me off. But yeah, we're good. Yeah, that pic of Abaloth, terrifying. Yes, I get it. Yeah. So let's see here. Soul Assassin, I wonder if full power Anakin could take on Abaloth. That's a good question. I don't. I know that the Sentinel shared the verses page that the company did back on my Twitter on a comment, and this verses was if Luke is more powerful than Anakin kind of thing. Luke did barely win over Anakin. So I wonder with that would be something to look into. I mean, there's so many things that you can go get into according to the lore. Abaloth would like to speak to your manager. Abaloth probably would want to possess Rey because she's all the Jedi. Just imagine that. And then making Abaloth even more powerful. If Rey gets through Abaloth without a scratch, then she's the new definition of plot armor. OG's internet has bad motivator, and it's Darth Toby. Cue suspenseful music. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, he's gone. He's sleeping now. He's done raising hell with me. You sound clear to me. Thank you. All right. So I see Keely Chow's just getting in here. We're getting ready to close down the show, wrap things up, all that good stuff. So next week, let's go ahead and do a part 2 of Revan. And let's talk about the events. So I'll post the events and what we're going to talk about on Twitter within my community group, so you guys can be prepared for that. Little homework if you wish. You know me, I like to assign homework and stuff and get you guys thinking about the time frame and timeline that we're going to discuss and the character we're going to discuss. So if you've never visited that time frame and that character, you'll be a little bit more prepared. So I'll share that, the time, all the events that pushed Revan through his and made him such a dynamic character. So part 2 for Revan, since we went off with, how much he influenced the galaxy, more or less, like with the Rule 2 and all that, we'll get into the events of Revan. Just keep this going a little bit, because like I said, each character that we discuss here could have, parts 1, 2, and 3 in this discussion, because there's so much that we can get into. It's so hard just to break down the character and to discuss just in general, when you can break down certain events, and all that. So, yep. So we'll do that. Part 2, Revan and his events. So stay tuned for that next CAF chat. This coming Monday, Luke Skywalker, New Jedi Order versus the Disney Jedi Order that he built. We did discuss a lot of that, or some of that, on CAF chat, but I'm going to go ahead and break it down a little bit more on, like accomplishments versus, defeats within those two, or comparing those two orders and their significance to the galaxy, all of that. So stay tuned for that. I can't wait. So it's been my first compare and contrast one in a very long time. And I look forward to that, because we need to have that up, because not only is Luke's order a failure in the Disney canon, Rey is getting the opportunity for the New Jedi Order now, which is kind of what we discussed here with who would be the villain and who should be the villain. And so like I said, I want to have all the original stuff up in front of you guys, so that you guys can make a good discernment on where you want to be with when it comes to the lore. And keeping the good stuff in front of you, keeping the heart of Star Wars in front of you, has always been my thing. So I'm going to finish reading these comments, and then we're going to conclude here. I am going to the gym. Even though I said I was tired, my body was like, oh, you need to sleep a little more, blah, 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 blah. I have a calendar shoot, and I will be announcing once I get the information confirmed on when the calendar shoot is going to be and what the theme is. I'm so excited about that. So stay tuned for that. But I want to keep on task with my own personal transformation with how I eat, the nutrition, how I keep my body healthy, and the end results. Yes, leaner, muscular. I have a certain way I want my body to look. I don't, of course, want to look like a toothpick without no muscles, what have you. So stay tuned for all of that. So let me see here. The I am a Jedi like my father before me is such a great line. It suggests that Anakin is still a Jedi deep down underneath the Vader guise. Correct. And that's another like psychological manipulation that influenced Anakin and redeemed Anakin. So that's something that started pulling him out of the dark more and more and more. So Luke is the redeemer. He's known to be like the Jedi before didn't believe in redemption. It was all or nothing. Either you defeat him or you're defeated. So Luke is the redeemer. He is one of the, influential Jedis in history because of that, and because of his stance with that type of philosophy. and it's shown, and that's probably could be added to the order, to this compare and contrast between the orders. Even though it gets into Luke's persona, it also gets into the belief system of the order. So that should, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go ahead and take a note on that and add that to this coming video. So stay tuned for that. Soul Assassin says, or has this right here, Starkiller would beat most Force users, but he would be a minor problem for Revan. Okay, there you go. And then part 2 of Revan, the golden years. Thanks you for being our Sith. Yeah. And then everybody, you guys have a good day. May the Force be with you. I'm so happy to always sit down with you guys on a Thursday morning as much as I can and discuss Star Wars. You guys are the reason I'm here, and the reason I keep this channel going. Thank you so much, and may the Force be with you.
The fate of the galaxy is now in your hands. With the new LEGO Star Wars Slave One, you can load Captain Solo, arm your weapon systems, man the cockpit, and take off with the most feared ship in the galaxy. But watch out for rebel ships. No matter the enemy, no matter the firepower, you control the action. With the new LEGO Star Wars collection.
Another happy landing.